What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast. I am your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network, and this is our 2023 Fantasy Football League Winners podcast for 2023. All of the top guys that we think are going to win you your leagues. We're going to talk about them here in this episode now that we have final cuts out of the way, final rosters are set. Here to break it down with me, one of the top rankers, projectors in the game, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? I believe this is our last one before we pivot to week one, right? So what better way to close it out than tell everybody who's going to win their league?
Yeah, and so, I wanted to do a pod like this because, I think most of the year we're talking sleepers and we're talking, a lot of guys that, kind of find you some edges deeper in the draft or overall strategy. But just kind of want to go through the guys, in that top 100 or so, because it still matters, who you draft. Like, for example, Josh Jacobs last year, if you took, some of the other running backs going in that RB, 20-ish range, and passed on Josh Jacobs because maybe you were worried about, the preseason and all the noise, you missed out. Or, Cooper Kupp a couple years ago, there's a bunch of receivers going in that wide receiver 2 range, but Kupp ends up, putting up a near 2,000 yard season. So we're trying to kind of find those guys, from this year. And there'll only be a few, but hopefully, we can kind of pinpoint on some because, these are the guys that we're kind of targeting in our drafts, and hopefully you guys will find some value from it as well. So let's start off at quarterback. Who you got leading off league winners 2023 quarterbacks?
The first two we've been talking about quite a bit. It's Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields. With Richardson, I have said from day one, like, he has top 10 upside, especially if he starts week one, and that's what's happening. He is the Colts week one starter. And last week's preseason game, they actually let him run a bit, and he was just ripping off chunk runs like a piece of cake for him. So he has massive upside. He could have a similar season to like Justin Fields last year, where he's just running a ton. Maybe doesn't put up much in terms of like passing yards. But Fields finished QB6 with that strategy last year. So love Richardson, still where he's going right now. And then Justin Fields himself. I mean, we've been talking about him as being a year 3 breakout candidate. I mean, we saw Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Tua all breakout in year 3 after they added, a free agent wide receiver. So I think that the path is set for Justin Fields to do that with DJ Moore, who's looked even better than I anticipated. But the last one that I'm sneaking in here is Brock Purdy. Now that he's officially their week one starter, they trade away Trey Lance. He's going to be their starter as long as he's healthy. He was a QB9 in 6 starts last year. I mean, he's in the perfect scheme for quarterbacks, surrounded by weapons. But the thing that I keep talking about with him is he has more rushing upside than I think people realize. Like, he ran a ton when he was at Iowa State. And he has a similar size speed combo of like a Patrick Mahomes. So I would say that's kind of his rushing upside. And it allows him to escape pressure better than like a Jimmy G type. So I think, we saw that he had a rushing touchdown this weekend. I think he can add that element to his game this year. So he does have, top 10 upside if everything goes well for him. So Brock Purdy is another guy late in drafts, I think, does have league winning upside.
What do you think is like the ceiling for him in terms of like quarterback finish, Purdy?
Top 10. I don't think he has top 5 upside. There's just too many quarterbacks that, can run the ball 7+ times a game. But I do think he has top 10 upside, and where he's going, he could like a Geno Smith season last year, where he's like QB6, QB7, somewhere in that range is probably his ceiling. But he does have the highest floor of all the guys at the bottom. But yeah, again, I think they didn't let him tap in his rushing upside as much last year because he was their last option, his last hope. And he was a rookie. So I think we'll see a little bit more of that this year. Not saying he's going to, confuse you with Justin Fields or anything like that. But I think he could give 10 to 15 yards a game kind of thing, especially near the end zone.
Yeah. And so the way he would have to be a league winner is essentially like you get him for free. He lets you get an extra, extra running back or extra something somewhere that ends up putting you over the top, because it's so interesting where I think the late round quarterback strategy is kind of been a little bit misunderstood. It wasn't just that, like, okay, you're getting like a quarterback later that's not going to score as much, and it helps you at other positions. You make up for it. Like late round quarterbacks actually were like hitting like top 4 value
Yeah.
in, so it's interesting. If you look at the ADP, the average ADP of a top 4 quarterback, 2019, the average ADP was 13, a little over 13. So that means like, the average quarterback to give you a top 4 season was a late round quarterback. 2020, it moved to 8. 2021, 5. Last year, 3.5. So like the price of like a top tier quarterback has been kind of steadily rising, and like there's been less and less of these late round quarterbacks. So like I've been kind of, my strategy has been a little different this year. Like last year, it was like Jalen Hurts was the first guy I was drafting, and then it was like I think it was Trey Lance and Justin Fields. So 2 out of 3, but it was kind of like a more of like a middle to late
Yeah.
round. This year, I'm actually going a lot more aggressively at quarterbacks. Like I'm taking more Jalen Hurts. I'm taking more Josh Allen. I'm taking more of these guys in the top. And like really, I want Richardson to be one of the last quarterbacks that I draft. Like he's so like it's kind of it's been a different strategy for me this year. But that said, I do think Fields is definitely in that conversation. I do like Purdy. I think I'm higher than consensus on him, but it's just a different kind of quarterback for me with Purdy. Like I don't expect him to give me the upside of a Fields or even a Richardson. But
obviously not. Just
yeah.
In terms of ADP, you can get them very, very late. But yeah, no, I agree. I'm the same way. I'm usually drafting one of the top 9 quarterbacks, which is kind of a new thing for me as well.
Yeah, right. So with that being said, my first guy is Justin Herbert. I think this guy is getting a little bit slept on because it's like he's not as sexy as Burrow. He's coming off the kind of down year last year where his efficiency really wasn't there. But remember, Kellen Moore was hired to make this offense more aggressive. They already had 3 very good wide receivers, and they went out and drafted a 4th in Quentin Johnston in the first round. Kellen Moore's offense in Dallas top 2 in pace every year. Dak Prescott was putting up 30 points a game in this offense. The first 2 years of Dak Prescott in Kellen Moore's offense, he averaged over 300 yards a game. The 2 years before that, he was averaging around 240. So, like, imagine the upside for Herbert, a guy that was already one of the premier young quarterbacks in terms of passing yards per game of our time, of ever, averaging 288 passing yards per game through his first 3 seasons as a pro. Now you're going to throw deep more. That 6.8 yards per attempt that he averaged last year, that's going way up. That's going up. So I think Herbert leads the league in passing yards. I think he has a good chance to lead the league in touchdowns. I think the Chargers are just a completely different offense than we saw last year. So, I know Burrow is kind of the guy. He has Chase and he has Higgins, but I think Herbert is the guy who usually goes after Burrow and even after Fields in some drafts, depends. But like Herbert is a guy who I've been trying to target a lot more because he's just a guy that I think people are sleeping on and not getting as much of. And he's a guy I want a lot of because I and every pass catcher too, like Eckler at the running back position. Everett is a good pass catching tight end. Parham as well. Like there's just so many weapons here if they become more aggressive. So I think Herbert is just in for a monster year. And the guy is just durable as hell too. He doesn't really get hurt. It's like some of the
well, he gets hurt. He plays through it.
Right. But that could be an edge, because like one of the things is we try to target these scrambling quarterbacks, but let's say Lamar Jackson misses another 5 games. Justin Fields misses another 3 or 4. Jalen Hurts misses another couple. That's how Justin Herbert goes from like your quarterback 5-6 to all of a sudden your quarterback 1-2, especially if he's going to do what I think he's going to do this year. So love Herbert. Another guy, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is like the poor man's Herbert in a lot of ways. He has the same kind of skill group, at least the top 3 receivers, and Ridley, Kirk, and Jones, and then Ingram, and then you got ETN at the running back position. So a lot of weapons. Defense is not great, so that works to get into some shootouts. The only thing is, it's a little bit more of a projection with Lawrence because he had that terrible rookie year. Last year, he pretty much doubled up on his a lot of his his touchdown. He doubled up on a lot of improvement. I think that could happen again this year. Doug Peterson said they want to score 7 more points a game. So I'm not saying they get there. No, I know, but I do think they'll be more aggressive. Mm-hmm. You don't just trade for Calvin Ridley to just chill and put up like 23 points a game. So Trevor Lawrence probably doesn't have exactly as much upside as Herbert, but if things break right, especially because the Jacksonville defense could be bad, especially against the pass. I think they were 26 last year, and I don't feel like they got too much better, on defense against the pass. I think you could see a big year from Trevor Lawrence. So like him. And then the final guy is a guy I've been kind of warming up to lately, but Daniel Jones, I think has some sneaky upside to finish in the top 4, top 5, because we know he can run, right? Mm-hmm. We know he can run, so he gives you that. But we've seen him put up massive passing numbers. Like his rookie year, he had 3 games where he had at least 4 passing touchdowns, and he had another 3 with well over 300 yards. So this is not like a guy who just is incapable of passing with more volume. It was just last year they condensed the offense crazy because they had no receivers. So this year, the way I'm looking at it is, we were all hyped about Hurts to AJ Brown. We were all hyped about Josh Allen to with Diggs. We're hyped now with Fields to DJ Moore. That's kind of what Darren Waller is going to be to this offense. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to give them that same amount of a jump, but there's going to be a jump in both volume and efficiency. This guy already showed that he's not going to turn the ball over anymore, and he showed that he could be accurate. So I think you could see a lot more games like that Vikings game in the playoffs from Daniel Jones this year. And Saquon is also, I hear, running a lot of routes. So Daniel Jones, I think sneaky bet to crack the top 5 if maybe a couple guys get injured. But one of those, like, I think a lot of people would look to like Deshaun Watson in that range, but I don't know if he has it anymore. And I don't know if Cleveland might just, ride Nick Chubb. They have a better defense. I don't know if they have to. Whereas the Giants, I do think their defense will be good, but Dabo is like an offensive guru. They got Waller, so I think Daniel Jones is super sneaky. Like, remember we were calling him like the poor man's Josh Allen a few years ago, and I think that's back now.
Yeah, and Jalen Hyatt could be a great deep threat. Gives them a new element. Maybe kind of what they're expecting with Kenny Golladay. That didn't work out, but he has a lot of weapons now. That hasn't been the case ever, because even when they did have pieces, they'd all get hurt. So as of now, he has the best supporting cast of his career.
Yeah, man. So I'm going Daniel Jones, probably QB9.
Wow.
Right after Lawrence, because he's further along in his career than Richardson, obviously, and then Dak Prescott. I love Dak, but I think Kellen Moore takes some of that upside with him to LA. So that kind of leaves me with Daniel Jones there, because again, like Watson, I'm down to 13 on him. I just don't see it. I just don't like. He has he has the upside, but I don't know if he actually has the upside. If that makes sense. Like, he has the skill set, but like Cleveland's defense is going to be good. So not really seeing it for him. Let's go to running back. Who you got?
So I think the most likely, like, Josh Jacobs type of guy in that running back 20 range would be Dameon Pierce for me. I thought Devin Singletary was maybe going to become more of a factor than I anticipated, but it looks like they're setting Pierce up to have a massive workload, and Singletary will just kind of be a change of pace kind of back. Plus, we could see Pierce see more receiving work as well. That's kind of what also led to Jacobs' massive season last year. Plus, CJ Stroud doesn't like to scramble. I keep saying that, but it was apparent last week. He had a wide open first down if he just used his legs. Nope. He decided to throw it. So I think that's just going to lead to more checkdowns to someone like Pierce. Plus, the Texans' offensive line should be decent. They brought in Shaq Mason, who's a solid run blocker. So I think for the best chances of like a Josh Jacobs type of season, in that range would be Damian Pierce for me. And then, you have the guys that I really think are like the true league winner kind of guys, like a Tony Pollard type from last year, where they begin the season as the number 2, but they can have a really good season, are the guys I keep talking about. Dave Montgomery, Jalen Warren, Tank Bigsby, Zach Charbonnet. Those are the 4 guys I think can offer value even when the starter is healthy, but they all have kind of top 10 upside if he were to go down. So those are the 4 backs I've been targeting the most.
Yeah, and I like that because I think at running back, it's the one position where you do want to get exposure to guys deeper into the draft. I kind of did, like, again, I did some research, just kind of trying to find some ways to pinpoint some of these league winners. And what I looked at was top 6 running backs in ADP that also beat their ADP by at least 6 spots. So no, not just rewarding you for drafting like the RB6 and he finishes first or something. It got to be a little bit outside. But for running back, only about 57% of those guys are even in the top 20. 43% are outside the top 20. About just over 20% are outside the top 30, and there's still about 10% of those backs you're going to find outside the top 40. Whereas at a position like wide receiver, 91%, using the same criteria, top 6, but and jumped up at least 6 spots. 91%. Going back over the last 8 years, dating back to 2014, which is I have ADP data for, those guys were in the top 30. So 91% of wide receivers that were league winners by the definition that I used inside the top 30, whereas at running back, you would see a lot more guys, more than double outside that top 30. So running back, I think that's why you don't want to, that's another reason why you don't want to necessarily go like robust running back, double up on running back early, because you want exposure to running backs throughout the draft. And if you're drafted too many running backs too high, you're just going to get more missed games, and that's going to lower your ceiling and your floor at the end of the day. So I'm in total agreement with Pierce, by the way. I think Pierce is up to my RB 16. So loving him. And then Alexander Madison is another guy I think could be that Josh Jacobs. When you look for these kind of backs, you're looking for a guy, about 80% of these league winning type running backs that you're going to find below ADP are going to be 26 or younger. There hasn't been one that was 28 or more in about 5 years. So you're looking for these younger guys. I think Madison fits the bill, still 25. Again, a guy that I think from week 1 is going to have a workhorse role. And I don't foresee him giving it up. Even if they do bring in a veteran, I think that veteran's going to get the Madison role from last year. So love Madison. And I think he's going to get a boost from the Vikings committing to more heavy personnel with, extending CJ Ham, signing one of the best blocking tight ends in Josh Oliver. It's going to be a little different than last year when it was like almost exclusively 1-1 personnel and they struggled running the football. So I think Madison and Pierce for me are those 2 guys, because, Madison, even more so than Pierce, even really has nobody in his way. And that's something else I think you look for. Like you don't, like, Devin Singletary is not really a threat either. And that's something I think you look for. Whereas opposed to a guy like, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet is a threat. ETN, another great back, but Bigsby is a threat. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
One more guy that I really like, James Cook. Another guy, young guy, 24, entering year 2, extremely efficient last year, over 5 yards a carry, great numbers after contact. And who's in the backfield with him? Latavius Murray and Damian Harris. These guys I could completely see these guys riding the bench if Cook, starts off the year well, because Cook just fits their offense more. Even if they're in the red zone, it's like you still want that like passing down threat, and that's not really what you're getting from Harris. Murray is decent, but Murray's probably the 3rd string. So I think Cook has a chance to kind of play himself into a bigger role, because that's what Jacobs did, right? They didn't intend to give him every snap. He just plays so well that McDaniel was like, I ain't taking him off the field. So, Madison and Cook for me as well as Pierce are my guys. All right, guys, the new NFL season is almost here. So your old habit of never missing a snap on Sunday is back. And I want to tell you about another habit that I've been getting into, Caldera Labs Skin Regimen. It's simple. And since you're already in the habit of brushing your teeth, why not add another habit right after? to take your skincare to the next level. Caldera has 3 steps. Number 1 is the clean slate, which is the face wash. Number 2, the base layer, which is the moisturizer. And then you have the good, which is a serum you can use at night that makes your skin tighter and smoother. Every drop of the serum has 3 to 4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. Skincare is important, but it does not have to be difficult. Just get in the habit of 1 minute in the morning, 1 minute at night. It's all you need to take your daily skincare routine to the next level and get better, clearer skin. And just for our audience, we have an exclusive offer, the best offer anywhere. Use code FLEX, FLEX, at calderalab.com and get 20% off right now. That's 20% off with code FLEX at calderalab.com and make unforgettable first impressions that lead to those magic words, "You look younger." Get 20% off at calderalab.com with code FLEX. All right, let's go to wide receiver. Who you got?
First off, Calvin Ridley. I mean, this one seems like a no-brainer. We haven't seen him play at a high level since 2020, and all reports has been he has looked as good as ever. And it was apparent when he played in the last week of the preseason. He went 3 catches for 50 yards in limited action, made a phenomenal sideline catch, and he's paired with the sending quarterback you mentioned earlier in Trevor Lawrence. So he's one of those guys that could be like the Cooper Kupp from a couple years ago. You can get him in the wide receiver 19-20 range, and he could just absolutely have a top 5 season. Another guy I love as like a league winner type of guy is Christian Watson, because he could be in for a massive, year 2 type of breakout season. And Jordan Love could be in for a better season than people realize. So this is partly a bet on Jordan Love. They've had a pretty good connection in their preseason snaps. And Watson's the kind of guy, he could score from anywhere on the field. So he has some massive touchdown upside. Plus, he might get, 1 to 2 direct carries per game. Last year, he had a 15-yard rushing touchdown and a 46-yard rushing touchdown. So that just gives him little bit more of a boost than other receivers. So I think Watson has, the recipe needed to have a league winning type season. And then the third guy, I'm not really a big Cortland Sutton guy, but he does have a path, especially he's still in the wide receiver, like 38 range. But he could be in a massive season with not only, Tim Patrick out for the season, but Jerry Jeudy looking iffy to start the season. That could be something that lingers throughout. But he would benefit from Russell Wilson having a bounce back season, which is very possible under Sean Payton. And, the way they've been dealing with tight end, where Troutman might get more playing time than we thought over Dulcich, is just another way for Sutton to maybe get more targets. So he's a guy that I haven't been big on until recently, but he definitely has a path to having that kind of upside in that late, wide receiver 30 range.
Yeah, you just got to see him get back to what he was pre-injury. Like I feel like he's never fully gotten back. Maybe he can. Where he's going, yeah, it's not too much of a risk. But yeah, just haven't really seen him look like the guy he looked like before the injury. Yeah. So maybe this is the year. But yeah, no, I totally agree on Ridley. That was one of the first guys I had written down. Already had a top 5 season. This Jags team is probably going to throw a lot. Their quarterback could, reach heights that we haven't even seen yet. So there's kind of this unrealized connected upside here. And, he's going to slot in as this guy who's probably going to run a route, 95% of the time. He's not coming off the field much if you go by their usage of their top 2 receivers last season. So, I love Calvin Ridley. I think he really sticks out as a guy who, he's going in that wide receiver 15, 18 range, depending on your draft. But again, we're looking for these guys that, there's a bunch of guys, maybe none of them stick out. You're like, I'm happy with any one of them. But I think Ridley's one of them that I really think could take it to the next level this season. Another one, I think I have to go. I'm on the post-hype Deebo Samuel train. I think this is going to be a massive Deebo year. Skinny Deebo, as they like to call him. He had that big year in 2021. He was a wide receiver 2, and then he had a contract dispute, a hold in. he admitted that he wasn't in great shape. It just kind of messed up his whole rhythm. He got hurt. But when Debo's healthy, this offense, the pass offense is going to run through him. Like I think we saw like Ayuk step it up, and Ayuk's a great receiver too, but I think you're going to see a lot more of the 2021 usage for Debo Samuel this season. I think you're going to see a lot more of the, short passes, just let him go to work. And it kind of went under the radar last year, but Debo Samuel led the team in target per route rate at 23.3%. Christian McCaffrey, once he got to San Francisco, was just below that at 23.1. Ayuk was at 20.9%, and Kittle was at 18.2. So Debo is still the guy that, when he was on the field, he was getting targeted. And I think this year he's going to be the focal point of the offense, of the pass offense. Obviously Christian McCaffrey is going to be there as well, but I think this is going to be a big Debo year, and I think he has a chance to kind of get back to that top 5 upside that he kind of missed out, because last year was kind of a lost year. He missed games. He was banged up in some others. It was just a lost year for him. But I've seen him play in the preseason. I've seen him in camp. He looks like a different dude. He looks explosive again, and eyes don't lie. So I've seen what I need to see. I think Debo's in for a monster year.
Do you think we'll see him get back to maybe 3 to 5 direct rush attempts, or does McCaffrey kind of squash that?
No. So from the reports I've heard out of camp, they were talking. That's just a part of the offense now. Like two to 4 per game. Like it's not always going to be. It's not always going to be 5. It's not always going to be 2. But yeah, somewhere in that range. That's just a part of the offense. That is going to happen regardless of the running back. Like that's just part of what they do. Like that's just their offense now. So yeah, like all the ingredients are there for Debo, and all of the skill guys just makes it tougher to zone in on him. So I think he could have a monster year. Love Purdy as well. And then George Pickens, I just think he's good. I just think he's really good. I think he could jump Deontay. I think he could be the top target on this team. He came within less than 100 yards of Deontay last season as a rookie, really just running sideline routes mostly, and in a very condensed offense. I think they'll open it up a little more because, like you mentioned, Pickett taking a step forward. But Pickens has been working on his entire route tree, and he's got so much talent that a guy like him, that year 1 to year 2 leap is going to be so massive for him to like actually work on things that could, utilize his talent in better ways. So I'm expecting Pickens to be the top receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think he's talented enough where you could get a wide receiver 1 year out of him this year. And I think people aren't thinking of the Steelers like that because they were so run heavy and, Pickett didn't throw many touchdowns, but I think Pickens is going to change a lot for this offense. So I'm expecting Pickens to kind of make that leap. And, who was it that said he was better than Justin Jefferson? Was it Ryan Clark that said that? I mean, he's bugging, but it's disrespectful to Justin Jefferson. But like he had the right idea. Like this dude Pickens is better than a lot of these other receivers in this league.
Yeah, already. He went in the second round, but I was saying he was a first round talent. He went in the second round because he was hurt for most of his senior season. They weren't sure how he'd turn. He had some off the field issues, so that's the only reason he went in the second round. But he was a first round talent, and he looks a lot better after the catch as well. He's not just some contested guy. He had that 50-yard touchdown where like the last 30 yards of it was all him just juking defenders and breaking tackles. So he looks significantly better this year. So I'm with you on that one.
And then the final guy is a guy we've been talking about, but Zay Flowers. I just think again, rookies aren't likely to be league winners. They're usually going to top out wide receiver 2 value, mentioned Olave and Wilson. If there's a guy that has a chance, I think it's Zay Flowers. I just think he's that good. And this pass offense under Monken, they 70 percentile in 4 years as an offensive coordinator, never lower than 19th in pass attempts. And that was the only time he was below average in an offense that he coordinated. Whereas Greg Roman, they averaged a 25th place ranking in pass attempts. So there could be a night and day difference in the amount of volume. And I think Flowers could be a part of that. Cause I think he's going to be a reason that they're comfortable passing a lot more. And with Beckham and Bateman's injury history, there's even a little more upside as well. But yeah, Zay Flowers is that one guy I think that if a rookie is gonna reach that ultimate like true league winning upside, my pick would be Zay. All right, let's finish it out with tight end.
Yeah, so for me, George Kittle, if we're talking like top 10 tight ends, I think Kittle has that upside. We saw that in the final 6 games last year where he's the tight end 1 overall. And what happened to be the 6 starts where Brock Purdy was under center. Granted, Debo was out for 3 of those games, but it just goes to show that Kittle, he still has one of the highest ceilings at the position. So if everything goes his way, absolutely has league winning upside, even though he's the tight end 5. But like you said, Debo also has league winning upside. I think Brandon Ayuk could have league winning upside. So you could just draft Brock Purdy and have all these guys. Again, like I said, I think he has league winning upside. But I think Kittle, to get there, he has to stay healthy all 17 games. He probably does need maybe one of the studs to miss time to really hit that upside, but that's possible. So, you know, he's the guy sort of in that range that I do think has league winning upside. Another guy a little bit farther down, I think has league winning upside is probably Jake Ferguson. Now he's just a guy, if I'm being honest, but he's replacing, you know, probably the Dalton Schultz role. So we've seen that produce, you know, sort of top 10 upside just based on Dallas's scheme. So he's a guy that, you know, could absolutely end up being a top 10 quarterback, tight end now that he is the week 1 starter. So I've been moving him up a ton because, like I said, earlier in the offseason, I had him and Luke Schoonmaker sort of in that tight end 30 range. But due to Schoonmaker just dealing with a foot injury all camp, you know, Ferguson's the man, and I am projecting him, you know, closer to the top 20. So he's just a guy to keep an eye on because he could have that full Dalton Schultz role this season.
Dalton Schultz finishes a Titan 3 in 2021.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that high. Yeah.
In half PPR points, you know, he was the tight end 5 in per game half PPR points. But you know, he played 17 games, so he ended up finishing as the tight end 3. So, you know, I think I might end up with Ferguson in my top 12. He's my tight end 14 right now.
Oh wow, you're higher than me now. But yeah, that's in that range. There's so many question marks with a lot of those guys that he has been leapfrogging a lot. Like he leapfrogged guys I love, like Greg Dulcich, Juwan Johnson. I know you don't want to move him, but yeah, he's been leapfrogging a lot of these guys.
Oh, he's already on top of him for me.
Well, there you go. Like all these guys have question marks with him. Like Schoonmaker could force more of a committee later in the season, but when that happens, you know, you could just drop him. But he's one of those guys that I think has the clearest path to having a, you know, top 10 type of season from like outside my top 15. But yeah, he's been a guy that's probably been moving up the most out of all the tight ends, honestly, in my rankings.
Yeah, and Ferguson and Hendershot, Ferguson ran around on 18% of the dropbacks, and Hendershot was 19% last year per game. So I actually see that as more like what Schoonmaker. I have him a little higher than that, but I actually think Ferguson looked pretty good. So yeah, he might be better than Schultz just talent-wise. I mean, I was kind of high on him even last year. I thought Dallas was going to run more 2 tight end than they ended up doing. Or no, they did run a lot of 2 tight end, but they split the snaps. It was really But yeah, so I mean, I think Ferguson takes over pretty much the Schultz role. So that is a role that, like I said, we've seen a top 5 tight end season. So you know, there's not many guys that you could say, like you said, outside the top 10, top 15 guys in ADP that could realistically do that. So yeah, I think Ferguson is a league winning type of tight end for sure. Two guys for me, Mark Andrews. I mean, not going out on a limb here, but you know, when we the thing is, you know, with Travis Kelce, he just creates such a problem for the other whatever 11 or 9 people in the draft who don't get him, because he beats other tight ends by like 100 points every year. So in the last 3 seasons, Travis Kelce has 3 of the, you know, top 5 tight end seasons, and the one of the other 2 that's not Travis Kelce is Mark Andrews. So Mark Andrews has been one of the 2 tight ends that's managed to put up a Kelsey-like season. Like I think Kelsey's lowest season in the last 3, Mark Andrews was able to beat that. And that's why we did have Andrews in that discussion of, who should we take first at one of those years. And then it didn't quite work out. But again, now you're talking about that Monken offense, 70th percentile in terms of pass attempts, never lower than 19th. Big step up from Roman, who's, 25th on average, 28th or below 3 of the 4 years. So I think Andrews is a guy who I am targeting. If I don't get Travis Kelce, like I am targeting Mark Andrews. Like I am not just, kind of sitting around and saying, okay, I'll just draft whatever value. Like I do want Mark Andrews. That is the ideal guy because you combine the uptick in passing. And I think Andrews, the reason why Andrews was able to post one of those top 5 seasons that wasn't Kelce is top target on the team, right? Like that at tight end, that's just so valuable because that's so rare that you see a tight end who's his team's number 1 option. And Mark Andrews is that one of those guys. And the other one of those guys is Darren Waller. Darren Waller is going to be the Giants' top option from 2019 to 2021, 85% route rate per game, 25% target rate per route. Last year, Devontae Adams came, Waller was hurt, new offense, just everything kind of, it just was a down year. You almost got to throw it out, but he's capable of playing 85%, 90% of the snaps and being targeted on 1 out of every 4. And in this Giant offense, I mean, look at all these other guys. You're talking about Slayton and Hyatt and Wandale, and like none of these guys are going to command a target share per route on a per route basis like Darren Waller. And by the way, they're not even using him as a tight end. They're straight up using him as a wide receiver. So they're lining him up in the backfield. They're lining him up in the slot. I saw him to start the preseason. I think he ran 2 or 3 routes, just straight up lined about wide. And he's a former wide receiver. So the one other guy that I think, if it's not Kelce, if it's not Andrews, who else is their team's top target? Because you just have some kind of untapped ceiling that way, in those games where, your team is down and you have those shootouts, games like that. If you're the number 1 target, you have that like 10 catch, 189 yard type of upside. That's Darren Waller. So Darren Waller is my tight end 3 over TJ Hawkinson. And I don't think that's going to be consensus, but I think in terms of overall upside, like TJ Hawkinson, it's only going to go down this year. I think there's going to be less passing in Minnesota, whereas Giants are on the uptick in terms of pass volume. So I think Waller being the number 1 guy versus Hawkinson, which could be either the number 2 behind the top 1 in the league, or if your boy Addison hits, or even if KJ Osborne maybe has a breakout, Hawkinson could follow. So I think Waller, he's just a cheat code because like he's not really a tight end, but he's at the tight end position. He's a wide receiver. So Waller's up to my tight end 3. That'll be my final rank for him.
Nice. Yeah, that's a bold call. I do like it, especially if he plays all 17 games. And one of the problems he had last year, his ADOT was like close to 14. So he was getting lower percentage throws, not being targeted as much, but his ADOT in his brief preseason stint was around 7.5, which I think could be the sweet spot for him. Do you think it'll be in the 7 to 9 range, or do you think it'll be 10 to 12 range? Do you have any clue like where his ADOT?
Yeah, I think it'll be like probably just under 8, 9. I think 7 might be a little low. I do think he'll be on some more downfield rush, but again, I just think he's going to be like a wide receiver.
Yeah,
the average receiver is like around 12. So I think like 10, 9, 10 for him.
Yeah, you'll want him to get some layup throws mixed in with the deep balls, whereas like Kyle Pitts, that's kind of the problem is he only gets deep balls. But I think Waller, it just looked like he's going to get like an ideal blend of easy looks, and then he'll obviously be a downfield threat as well, but it was clear he is going to be the centerpiece of this passing attack. So yeah, like as I was watching him catch balls and see the first string offense, I was raising his projection like as I was watching it. Like that's how impressed I was. But with him, it always comes down to health. But if he stays healthy for 16, 17 games, absolutely has league winning upside.
Yeah, and that was like part of the issue with the Raiders last year. I mean, it was just too many downfield throws, period. I mean, that's what kind of Carr just never really got used to it, and his accuracy wasn't there. Even Devontae, the numbers were good, but the efficiency, in terms of the Carr to Devontae connection wasn't always great, with the completion rate and whatnot. It was just Waller did not like the offense. That's why he got traded. So I'm kind of throwing it out last year. Like I don't see any decline, watching him play. And he's a former receiver, tight end. He's not going to. They're using him more as a receiver, which he's not going to take as many hits and not going to have to block as much. So yeah, I think he's deserving. Like I think he's probably this year's like Hawkinson or something. Where he's the guy that's going to end up putting up that tight end 3 season. But yeah, he's the only other guy that's come close to Kelsey. So got to do it. All about upside here. But that is those are our league winners for 2023. So let me recap those for quarterback. Sean. I'll just say both because we both pretty much like the same guys. Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, Brock Purdy for you, and then I also like Herbert, Lawrence, and Daniel Jones. At running back, we both love Dameon Pierce. You also mentioned Montgomery, Jalen Warren, Zach Charbonnet, and Tank Bisbee. I love Alexander Madison and James Cook. At receiver, we both love Calvin Ridley and Christian Watson. You like Cortland Sutton. I like Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, Zay Flowers. At tight end, we both love Jake Ferguson. You love Kittle. I love Andrews as targeting him like you would a couple years ago when he was in that tight end 1 discussion, and Darren Waller. So those are the guys that we're targeting early in our draft. So I know we usually go the sweeper route and talk about a bunch of different other things, but those are the guys that we're expecting to deliver the gold, deliver the goods this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed the pod. Hope you guys found some value with that. Remember, our projections are up at actionnetwork.com. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Good luck in all of your fantasy drafts, and good luck this season. And we'll be back talking some week 1. Until next time, let's get this money.